Welcome to this week's edition of the Nation's Capital Sports Show. I'm Kevin Jeter, hanging out with Vincent Charles, Stephen Manguez, Afshin Banav, and Chris Jerry. Gentlemen, it's been a while. Let's get started talking about what we enjoy talking about the best and the most in the DMV, and that is sports inside the DMV and beyond. But let's actually go inside the DMV and talk about those Washington Nationals. Currently, as of this broadcast, they're a little bit behind the Atlanta Braves in second place in the National League East, and they're in a virtual tie with the Miami Marlins. And let's see here, the return of Ryan Zimmerman and his new position from third into left field. And, of course, Bryce Harper. He's rehabilitating his thumb by playing games, literally and figuratively, with the PlayStation 4 gadget here. And here to start off our conversation and talking about those beloved Washington Nationals is Stephen Manguez.
Well, I'd certainly love to be playing the games with him. Bryce, if you need someone to play against, I can tell you my gamer tag on Twitter if you want. But yeah, I mean, back in May, we started to see a little bit of faltering from the Nationals, but now at least in the most recent series, we've been able to take advantage of some lowly teams and, you know, get back on track a little bit, back above 500, and like you said, just behind the Braves. And now we've got Zimmerman returning. Hopefully that can help. And tell me if this sounds familiar. Tanner Roark controlling the Padres once again, as he did in April when they were here in D.C., and he had a complete game shutout then. 8 shutout innings for him on, I believe, Friday night in San Diego. Now the Nationals are going to move on to tougher contests with the best record in baseball in San Francisco next week. That will be a test for sure.
Well, you're talking, Stephen's referring to the San Diego game in which that 3-game series in which the Nationals get done playing. What's interesting about that whole series is that when the Washington Nationals go to an extra innings, they're 1-6.
Well, you know, that definitely is, I would guess that's probably the worst in baseball in terms of not doing anything in extra innings. But the thing that the Nationals have been doing that I do like is you got to beat the teams that are not that good. And right now they seem to be doing that. You mentioned that they're getting ready to play San Francisco. So I don't expect it. It'd be great if they can win 1 of 3. But right now, at least beat the teams that you're supposed to beat.
Right, and then not only San Francisco, but after that they've got a big weekend series against St. Louis, and then they play the Braves the following weekend. So they've got 2 weekend series here after San Francisco that they've really got to do. I'd say they've got to get 2 out of 3 against St. Louis and at least split the 4-game series with Atlanta. But they are coming back. We've got Zimmerman's can't come back. Let's not forget Adam LaRoche has come back. He's played really well. Gio Gonzalez should be back soon. If this team can come back together the way they were supposed to be in the very beginning of the season and have that whole lineup in, I'd like to see what they can do because they haven't had a full game with that whole lineup yet.
Historically speaking, in Major League Baseball, the month of June is when teams actually take flight or don't take flight at all. So as you mentioned before, it's going to be interesting to see how things shape up. If they can do some damage for the month of June before they get to the All-Star break, I think they'll be sitting pretty. Vincent.
Right now, the Nationals are what they are. They're a 500 team with a lot of potential. Getting back to Tanner Roark, he has proven he is here to stay. Also, Blake Treinen is doing well pitching in the absence of Gio Gonzalez. So I think the starting pitching is very solid. The Nationals have a lot of bats. In fact, that's going to be a problem when Harper comes back. The bullpen is doing well. Soriano, sometime, he's the cardiac kid. But right now, the Nats are in a good position.
Having a lot of bats and actually conceivably, Vincent, I agree with what you're saying, but I kind of disagree. Having a lot of good bats and hot bats is potentially not a bad thing. It's actually the Nationals have to figure out where folks fit in.
Yeah, that's going to be up to Matt Williams, and that's the interesting problem that he has because when Harper comes back, what are you going to do with Zimmerman? What are you going to do with Denard Spahn? What are you going to do with Danny Espinosa if you want to move Zimmerman back into the infield? I like actually Zimmerman playing left field, and I think they're going to let him do that as much as possible till Harper comes back because that'll give him more versatility where he can play out there or play inside, play the infield, and Matt Williams can go game by game depending on the situation.
All right, we want to remind everyone, if you're just tuning in, you're watching the Nation's Capital Sports Show right here at AIM via Comcast 69 and Fios 38. Chris.
Yeah, I think that right now for the Nationals, again, they just need to get whatever they can out of the way right now. It looks like you may not get to 90 wins to win the division. So again, I just think that they should beat all the teams they're supposed to beat and just hope to split with the teams that are really good. The key is this year the National League East is really not that good if you look top to bottom, at least at this time based
Right.
on records.
Well, as June develops and we get to July and the All-Star break comes and goes, we're going to have a closer look as to who the contenders potentially will be. We have Miami, which actually took us all by surprise when we talked about this on our last show. Who would ever thunk it? But once again, we have July that's coming, and that's going to tell the men from the mice.
Yeah, no one believed in South Beach at all, except for except for the beaches and bars down there. But but Miami has done really well this year. You know, I think now it is, like you said, Kevin, June. So what does that mean? Trade deadline is just a few weeks away, and this is where you find out now if the Washington Nationals have that medal that they need in order to continue and compete past the All-Star break.
All right, let's look in terms of the players of the month for May, because we didn't have an opportunity to do that. If you guys had to choose your MVP for the Washington Nationals, who would that player be and why? And first, we're going to actually start with Vincent.
For me, it's a hard decision. I'm going to give it to Denard Span. He's hitting a lot better, he's stealing bases, and he's making great plays out in the field, edging out first baseman LaRoche.
Yeah, and when we go back to what we said before, our players for April, I think we all talked about LaRoche, Worth, and Rendon. Rendon has faltered a little bit in the last month, and May is starting to slip some, but still useful when he needs to be. He's getting done, but I am going to switch off of any of that. I'm going to change it up a little bit, and I'm going to go with Doug Fister as my player of the month for May, seeing his first action, finally getting back into it, and has a 3-1 record in 5 games.
Mr. Barnab.
I'd like to stay with the pitching too, Vincent. I'm going to go with what you were talking about earlier. You guys were, and that's Tanner Roark. I think
Yeah.
he's done really well, and he does not want to relinquish his position as pitcher, as starting pitcher, and good for him. And away he goes, because every time he's on the mound, I think the confidence builds more and more for Mr. Roark.
All right, and we save the best for last. Mr. Jerry.
Well, I'm listening to what all you guys said, and I've got to figure who do I really think is a player of the month. And, you know, in retrospect, I'm going to have to give it to Anthony Rendon, because I don't think anybody expected him to do quite as good as he did so far this year. And the fact that when Zimmerman got hurt, he had to step in at third base, take that over and play it. You know, he's got good pop on the bat. He definitely looks like the kind of guy that's here to stay. There's no more going back to Syracuse for him. He's going to be in the major leagues locked in a position. So he's the guy I'd say for the month of May that would be my player I'd pick.
All right, thank you much, gentlemen. Let's continue to talk about sports here in the DMV, the Washington Capitals. The Caps have a new general manager and coach, Afshin.
Yeah, they do. Barry Trotz is the new head coach. He comes from Nashville. Actually, he had worked under the Capitals a long time ago. That was a long time ago. He was Nashville's only coach for their 15 years. And I guess we go from GM to GM-BM, because Brian McClellan is the new general manager of the Washington Capitals, and he was under McPhee as assistant for about 6 or 7 seasons. So we'll see what they do, but they've got a lot of questions. You know as well as anybody, Steve, a lot of questions to answer with Ovechkin and Mike Green and Brooks Laich and the system that they're going to implement. And the question right now is Barry Trotz really the answer for this hockey team?
Yeah.
Well, I looking at it, let's put it this way. All the hockey experts seem to think this is a good hire. I don't like the hire, and I'm gonna tell you why. Now, Steven's gonna correct me, I'm sure. On this. I don't like.
I may
the
agree.
hire.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, I don't like the hire because I look at Trotz. 15 years at Nashville, they made the playoffs 7 times.
Same thing as the Caps.
They got to the
Bounce
second
out.
round twice. The last 2 years, they didn't make the playoffs at all. So I'm figuring, well, what has this guy done so outstanding to bring him in as the head coach? And then if you didn't like George McPhee, why are you hiring his assistant? You know, to me, what that says is Ted Leonsis has basically made this firing of McPhee to appease the fan base who wanted McPhee out.
Right.
And you bring in, you know, the guy behind him that's been, you know, basically his right-hand man. So I don't particularly like the choice of the head coach, and I don't like the choice of general manager. But Stephen, I know you do.
I do kind of like it. I see all the points that you raise, and and I think the Capitals part of that hiring process is they seem to always get somebody that's connected in some way or another to the franchise. I mean, everyone has been with the Capitals before or the farm team systems, and that's who we're hiring. So I think that's kind of where it comes from. But to McClellan's point, he's been the assistant for a while, but supposedly Leonsis never really knew it. I never really knew him, and until the interview. And what got him to hire him was the fact that he was not afraid to tell Leonsis where he was going wrong and different things that needed to be done. So hopefully, if that's the case, that's where I kind of like it. Maybe he's kind of like the younger brother that's been able to witness mistakes be made and not make the same mistakes. So hopefully we don't see the same mistakes from him. But of course, he's got potential to make his own mistakes.
Vincent.
I kind of side with Chris. I question the hiring of McClellan. I do know that Leonsis, though, he's slow to make changes sometimes, and he rewards loyalty. So this could be part of it. As far as Trotz, I think he's known as a player's coach. He's heavy on defense, no-nonsense attitude, expects you to play and play hard. But with his record, it's gonna be time. Time will tell whether he's gonna work out or not. Leonsis is calling this a refresh instead of a rebuild. To me, it's a rebuild.
All right, so we said that it's refreshed. We're going to see how that's going to go as the season progresses. Basically, we're just speculating here, and Afshin, I'm going to let you have the real
quick
word.
Last word. I was just going to say, Vincent, the way you described Barry Trotz's resume sounded exactly like Dale Hunter. But that's all I want to say about that. McClellan, Chris, I think I might want to give him a little bit of a chance because assistant GMs don't always favor everything that the GM does. So maybe he would do things a little differently, but we'll see. I agree with you on Barry Trotz.
All right, let's see how the Washington Redskins are doing differently. They were able to make some headway according to their brass management in regards to bolstering their offensive line through the draft. A long-tenured Redskin bids farewell, and the Burgundy and Gold hired former Redskins QB and Super Bowl MVP Doug Williams. And, oh, by the way, it's the start of the OTAs. And here to start off or lead off this conversation is our Redskin man, Vincent Charles.
Okay, new Redskins offense coordinator, Sean McVay, a holdover from the Shanahan era. So I think offensively, you're going to see some things similar, that were in the Shanahan system, but you're also going to see Jay Gruden using his philosophy, and I think Robert Griffin, yes, he's going to run some, but he's going to be more of a drop-back quarterback. Now, they did make some good draft acquisitions, but remember, rookies don't help you right away. What they have now is good running backs and a solid quarterback. The offensive line is still going to be a question. Defensively, I don't think the Redskins have improved their secondary that much, but up front, they have made improvements. Whether it's worth paying Arakpo and the new acquisition, Hatcher, a combined $22 million, that's a big question.
All right. Didn't answer the question in regards to Reed Doughty leaving the Washington Redskins. We'll let you get to that after.
He was here for 8 years, so I don't know if I'd have to, just off the top of my head, that might have been one of the longest, definitely one of the longest tenured Redskins, right? So, that's I think what you're seeing is that Tenard Jackson has been allowed to return to football.
Yes.
And Brandon Merriweather, if he can play a little bit more within the lines, so to speak, that they're going to be your starting safeties, along with D'Angelo Hall and Amerson at the corner. So I think that they're setting themselves up, solidifying that defensive backfield position. Whether it's right is another question.
A question for you. Who did the Washington Redskins get during the May draft?
Well, they got the linebacker from Stanford, Trent Murphy. I believe his name is Trent Murphy, who is another kind of a Rakpo guy. He's kind of a Ryan Kerrigan guy. A lot of sacks up there in Stanford. He was one of the top sack leaders in the country his senior season. But what they did here was they want to give themselves some insurance in case Arakpo does not come back for the 2015 season. So they're going to install him quickly. They'll probably use all three of them on the field at the same time in certain situations.
Yeah, I can see them using all three at certain times situations. That's definitely a depth move to make sure you get it now before you're left. If something happens due to injury or contract situations, you don't get left empty-handed. You've got him there, and it's always good, especially pass rushing, to have the depth. And you've got Jason Hatcher added as well for that pass rush. So, and new linebacker coach. So, should see some improvement there. That's what we're going to look for. I for one, I was a little upset with the draft myself. I think we could have done more to, again, add depth in other areas. The fact that we went Trent Murphy first as opposed to maybe getting someone in the second round or a little later. I like the fact that we traded back. We were able to get Morgan Moses, which was a real key. I think hopefully he can step right in at right tackle and start to really make a strong front five there on the
All right,
offensive
and
line.
what Stephen means by we, he's referring to
The
Washington
Redskins. Absolutely, I'm sorry.
And I'm
problem.
going to rain on Stevens' parade because
knows Morgan.
as a UVA football season ticket holder, it's a tremendous story about Morgan, coming through high school and getting to UVA, graduating and playing there. But I'm telling you, you Redskin fans are going to be really disappointed if you expected somebody that's going to make an immediate impact. He's okay, but I don't see him playing all that well at the pro level.
Well, to that point, part of why I was upset was when we traded down there, Cyrus Karandra was available, and I think I would have rather had him. I had him certainly, as most teams did, higher on the board than Moses, but as long as you're able to get one of them, you're trying to do it. And what's wrong with getting another right tackle later on in the draft to fill it instead of Ryan Grant, the receiver that we got? A little head scratcher to me, really filling out that with a lot of names at receiver.
And the hiring of Doug Williams can only help Robert Griffin III primarily because they've been talking a little bit during the offseason, and that's going to help Robert Griffin III mature a little bit because the word is that he doesn't take criticism of his play very well, Afshin.
No, he doesn't, and you've seen that sometimes with his tweets and with his with his interviews and things like that. But Doug Williams would be a good head to a good ear for Robert Griffin III. There's no doubt about it. I've always been a huge Doug Williams fan, even back when he was playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers way back, before many of our viewers were probably even born. But he's somebody that's going to be in RG3's head, and I think it's going to be in a good way for him. Well, we'll see what it does, but hopefully Robert Griffin III will listen to him and take a lot of his advice.
And the OTA start up soon. One thing I like about this town, it can be the month of December or actually the month of June. You can still talk about football, and I'm glad that we had an opportunity to talk about the Washington Redskins. As the season progresses or the start of the season happens, we're going to be talking more about those Washington Redskins here on the Nation's Capital Sports Show. Right now, we're going to go into a break, and the Nation's Capital Sports Show can be heard on TuneIn.com. I'm Kevin Jeter, hanging out with Chris Jerry, Afshin Bernard, Stephen Manguez, and Vincent Charles. We will return next on the Nation's Capital Sports Show. Just giving you a hard time. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. You can catch the Nation's Capital Sports Show on the web at tncss.net. I'm Kevin Jeter, along with Vincent Charles, Stephen Manguez, Afshin Bernard, and Chris Jerry. All right, Chris, let's get right into it. It's the NBA Finals with the San Antonio Spurs and the Miami Heat. And after winning that Game 1, San Antonio has a unique opportunity to take advantage if they're able to win the second game of this series, of this 7-game series at home.
Yeah, they're working, really hard with the high vac and air conditioning people at the AT&T Center to see if they can have some kind of malfunction again. That worked so well for them the last time. But yeah, this is an interesting series because Miami, this is their 4th straight time in the finals. And of course, San Antonio still trying to get, another championship. These two teams met last year. So it's an interesting series with San Antonio winning the first game. And also this year, the format has changed. It used to be, since 1985, 2-3-2, meaning the team with the best record had the first 2 games at home and the last 2 games, and the other team had the middle 3. This time it's now 2-2-1-1-1. So if San Antonio can win this game, they'll be in really strong position going to Miami for the next 2. But it's been a pretty good series, and I think we're gonna have it maybe go 6 or 7 games. But Vincent's giving me that look like.
Well, before we get to Vincent, it's the last hurrah, I think so, for Tim Duncan if he's able to capture another NBA ring. We were actually going to try this LeBroning but we didn't have an opportunity to do that. We were going to have this big guy, and I guess Chris lift up little Vince in there, and we were going to snap pictures of that, but we didn't have an opportunity to do that. But I digress, Afshin.
Yeah, he just wants to win one for the thumb, I guess, right? He's got 4 rings, and Duncan had the opportunity last year, but then Game 6 was a wash. I think San Antonio and Popovich still can't figure out what happened in Game 6, and they lost that one, and then they ended up losing Game 7 pretty easily to Miami, and now here we are again. I don't know if San Antonio is going to be able to do it. I'm in the tank for LeBron James as a basketball player. I think he is one of the best in the game today, and I think that he will. Game 2, we'll see a much different kind of LeBron James, weather permitting.
All right. Vincent.
I think that the Spurs definitely have a chance. They got a lot of fortitude being able to come back into the finals another year. You got to give Tim Duncan and company credit. I think what's going to be important is how Tony Parker is after this ankle injury that he has suffered in the last series. Also, I think their bench is strong. The Spurs with Manu Ginobili, the 6th man, I think they have a stronger bench. And if they can hold LeBron to just like jump shots instead of getting inside, I think they have a chance. And like Chris says, the way it's set up, the 2-2-1-1-1, they have the home court advantage.
Well, I personally think that it won't make a difference when it comes right down to it. I think I have to side with you, Afshin. I think Miami will prevail, whether or not LeBron gets cramps or not. Let's hope that he doesn't. But the bottom line is, I think the stronger and more athletic team in Miami will prevail. Steve.
Yeah, personally, I like the way that the Spurs play their basketball. Got to respect them for being able to keep their unit together for so many years with what they've done, and that's why you see them reaching the finals. Obviously, Miami has been doing that as well now with their big 3. It's really a toss-up.
So let's end this segment, because my question to you guys, who do you think is going to win the NBA Finals? First, we'll start with you. Seattle or Miami?
As much as I want San Antonio,
All right.
Miami will win it.
Very good.
I'm going to go San Antonio. At least take game 1. I'll go with it.
Chris?
I'm going to ride with the Spurs too.
Spurs are deep, but I think Miami will win their 3rd consecutive NBA championship.
I'm going to side with the big guy here. Miami's going to win that one. So let's go on and talk about World Cup. As the 2014 World Cup begins in Brazil, the United States has their work cut out for them. So there goes the story in regards to the USA. Let's talk about this, Afshin.
Yeah, they are in what a lot of people call the group of death. They play in the same group as Portugal and Germany and the Black Stars of Ghana. And Ghana was just a deflected hand away from going to the semifinals 4 years ago. But I don't know if the USA is going to be able to come out of this group. This is a really tough group, especially if you know who comes back to play for Portugal.
Chris?
I say don't believe the hype of the 2 tune-ups that they had. They beat Nigeria recently, and I think the United States is going to do what they did in 1998, which is to finish last place with no wins. I'm not a Jurgen Klinsmann fan anyway, but I think this is setting up. They call it the group of death, but that's not because the U.S. is in it. But I think that I don't think the U.S. is going to get a single win in this three-game group play.
Vincent?
Wow, that's interesting coming from you, Chris. I think they can get 1, maybe 2 wins.
Really?
But
I want to know who.
they're in a tough division, especially the first game. Was it Nigeria, the first game?
No, they're in the group with Portugal and Ghana and Germany.
They play
But
Ghana
the
first.
They play
USA
Ghana
open with
first,
Ghana.
not Nigeria. Yeah, Ghana.
Okay, my mistake.
Well, always aim high and wish
Yeah.
when the wishes run out, you just believe in magic. I guess that's Vincent's magic there.
Well, I'm going to say that having Ghana as the first game, probably the best that you could hope for within that group. I mean, every single team that is in that group made it out of group play in the last World Cup. So somebody is going to be on the end of it this time and not be able to make it. Hopefully it's not the United States, but having Ghana first, hopefully they can get that win in a revenge match and then move forward and pick up some other points.
So my question to you guys, what teams do you guys have to be hot contenders? I know that you have a couple of favorites, and let's hear about those.
Well, obviously you got to go with the home country, right? Brazil. I look for the same group of countries: Brazil, Spain, Italy, Germany, to be right up there. Portugal, even. My thing is, it's interesting if Spain or Brazil happens to just falter a little bit in group play and one of them ends up second and the other one ends up first, they will play in the next round. Brazil could end up playing Spain potentially in the out-of-group play, and that would really be interesting to see such two strong countries play each other so early. But Kevin, to answer your question, all those countries I mentioned that are normally the powerhouses, I think you might see another South American country in there as well, but I don't see anything different.
And that's where I was going to go, Afshin. The one country that you didn't mention that I think
Argentina.
is Argentina.
Yeah.
That's the one that I would look at. Of course, Brazil being the home nation, but I think Argentina is going to really do well in this tournament.
All right, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of named them all there. Argentina, Spain, Portugal, and our own group there, or in the U.S.'s group, all tough ones to look at.
And Vincent, of course, you agree with them, right?
Spain has done well in the last 8 or 10 years, winning championships, winning one World Cup, right? Brazil, tough also. Germany's going to be tough. Again, Argentina, Netherlands.
So you agree with them.
Right.
All right, so
Pretty
that's a
much
good
so.
that's a good thing. So amid the pomp and pageantry, that's what you got to love about what's happening in Brazil.
Yes.
I really love. I don't usually follow soccer, but World Cup soccer, I love that. Waking up at all odds in the morning to watch soccer. I know, Chris, you do it on a regular basis.
And though you won't have to do it this time with it being in the Americas, but
Right.
yes.
Well, very good.
You'll be able to see it in a reasonable hour.
Yes,
That's all right.
which means bars.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let's talk a little bit about Chris Jerry's trip to watch the Belmont Stakes. What happened up there, man?
Well, it was a fun trip. You know, I'm a big horse racing fan, and I decided that I wanted to finally see a Triple Crown winner because I saw the last Triple Crown winner and affirmed at Pimlico. I didn't go to watch up at Belmont, but that was 38 years ago, 36
yeah.
years ago. So I decided I would go up to New York. So I took the train and bus over to the city, and it was really interesting. But I just think that California Chrome is really hard. It's, you know, some folks say he didn't have any gas left, but 95% of the horse races running in the United States and North America are between a mile and a quarter. You do not have mile-and-a-half races. And so you're all of a sudden asking these horses to step up, run a mile and a half. And Belmont is one of the more unique racetracks because the Belmont itself in circumference is a mile and a half. Yeah. Most tracks are a mile. So you've got to have a jockey that knows how to gauge the horse, how to come over the corner. But nonetheless, having said all that, I really enjoyed it. There was about 120,000 people there, so it's standing. LL Cool J concert broke out right in front of me. I got a spot right there by the finish line, and all of a sudden, I didn't expect that. That's LL Cool J. But it was a great time, but we're going to have to wait another year for a Triple Crown winner.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chris, for that story there. You can get in touch with us here at the Nation's Capital Sports Show at info@tncss.net. That's the Nation's Capital Sports Show for you. And in the nutshell, Afshin and gentlemen, we have a lot of people that are behind the scenes, very talented crew, and it all starts with our executive producer, Devin Gallagher.
Devin Gallagher, Kevin Sampson, Janessa Jackson's our technical director, LJ Lacoma, graphics, Ken Briley, our camera operators, Bill Weisner, Craig Syfax, and Dario Baguena. So thank you to everybody.
Charles Smith, too, right?
Charles Smith, of
That's
course,
right.
Director
Chuck in the
Charles
truck.
Smith, Chuck in the Truck.
That's right.
And everybody who makes us look so good. And of course, you can catch a Nation's Capital Sports Show Sundays at 3, Mondays at 9:30 a.m., and Fridays, I think, at 9 a.m.
And that's via Comcast. I feel like saying Comcast NBC because NBC brought Comcast.
That's true.
Right.
And of course, Files 38. For the entire staff here at the Nation's Capital Sports Show, I'm Kevin Jeter, along with Afshin Banab, Chris Jerry, Stephen Mangas, and Vincent Charles. Go out and have yourself a great sporting week and a great sporting day, and we'll catch you in the next edition of the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. Thank you.